Being 3 o'clock, start the call to order the meeting of the Select Board for April 10th, 2024. Note this meeting is being televised, streamed, or recorded by Bourne TV. If anyone in the audience is recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge it at such time. I don't see anyone. Use of flash photography during Select Board meetings is prohibited. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting, they can do so by calling the conference line, 1-929-205-6099. The Zoom meeting ID is 880-5500-4066. Password is all capitals, workshop. The Zoom chat will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. All items within the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes. We have President Peter Meyer, Mary Jane Mastrangelo, Anne Marie Saronian, and Melissa Ferretti is on Zoom, so if we take any votes, they will be by roll call. Public comment on non-agenda items. Public comments are allowed for up to 12 minutes at the beginning of each meeting. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes for comment. The board members are not able to respond due to posting requirements of the open meeting law. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing none. Moving right along. Next item. Report out on executive session with the Barnstable County Commissioners. So this morning, the Select Board was in attendance at an executive session with the Barnstable County Commissioners. At the executive session, the commissioners voted to accept the counteroffer proposal made by the town of Bourne for the 65-acre county land parcel for a purchase price of $730,000 with terms to be negotiated in the purchase and sale agreement. So we are very pleased to have that, that we've been working on for, I think, 7 years, and it's make good progress to get that completed. Policy workshop with the town council, marijuana. I see Brian Bertram. I know Ivrea is gonna be sort of running overlapping in meetings, so she might be a little bit late. We have a number of items, process for developing the marijuana review procedures, comparative criteria and rating scales, order of applications, planning board versus, and then site plan, select board, determining what defines a complete application, review proposed revisions to model HCA, establishing a local license and determining at what point it should issue, is the bylaw necessary, and licensing fees. Melissa's in the waiting room still, she said. Who's the M?
And
There's no waiting room.
who's the them up there?
That's not Melissa.
Use the link that Kathleen sent.
Michael
her-
Allen.
Have her log, there's no waiting room for this meeting, so.
It's Michael Allen.
Okay.
Okay. All right, technical difficulty. I'm reading the text so that everyone is aware of the text. Oh, wait. Michael Allen. So Melissa's not here yet, but she's gonna attempt to come in. Does anyone have any process? I kind of wanted to start with the model, the host community agreement. Is that okay with everybody? Has everybody had a chance to read it? And Brian, I don't know if you can answer questions, or maybe we do have to wait for Ivrea I had a couple questions. Overall, I thought it was good.
I can answer some questions. I think Ivry is probably about 5 minutes out, so she should be here
Okay.
very quickly in any event.
So, at the beginning, you know where it says by and between blank, which is the name of the business, and it says a business entity.
Yep.
Can we like leave that blank to name what kind of business entity it is, like corporation, LLC, or do you feel that's not necessary? I always feel that those were in my agreement, so.
I mean, you can leave it blank with, in that kind of prefatory language. We just want to make sure that we're identifying, whoever it is with as much specificity as possible.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we could, a blank entity, like, or a, just so that that blank would be a Massachusetts LLC, a Delaware LLC, Hong Kong corporation, yeah.
Right? Like a
And it says
Massachusetts
recorded with the-
liability company.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah,
blah,
yeah, so I would just be a little bit more specific, blank on that.
Looks like Melissa's online but off camera.
Who's the other person?
That's the Michael Allen.
The M is Michael Allen, right? Who's
Yeah,
the-
the M, and Melissa's the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay. Melissa, you there?
I am.
Okay, welcome.
I'm still moving around.
All right, that's okay, that small print, I didn't put it up on my computer, so that small print is like beyond my eyesight capability.
Perfect.
So I had a question on, it's on page 3, which is section 4E.
Okay.
So, the agreement shall become voidable under the following circumstances. If the company is unable to obtain a final license from the commission within 2 years of execution of the agreement, or if such local permits and approvals are not granted for any reason within 6 months of execution of this agreement, or if such local permits and approvals are granted but lapse due to non-use. I just kind of wanted to think about that. So the non-use for a special permit or a site permit, based on our upcoming bylaw at the town meeting, will be 3 years. So that means they have basically 3 years. I mean, it's 3.5 years, so they have the 6 months, then they have the 3 years, and then the planning board could extend it. So I'm just making sure that that's what that's actually saying, and then thinking about whether that's too much.
That is what it's actually saying, about the non-use session. I'm just trying to think about all, 5 in tandem and whether or not that's actually likely to happen. So they got a final commission from the license. So I mean,
I suppose it makes sense that if it takes them 2 years to get their cannabis license, and they've got another year to kind of get up and running, so
yeah,
is everybody comfortable with that? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure we know what we're saying.
Right?
What?
no, I agree, and that's why I paused. I was sort of plotting it all out in my head. That's a good question.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with it. I think I'm okay with it. But we might have to be aware of any potential extensions by the planning board. So we could speak at their public hearing to say no. If such local permits and approvals are granted but lapse, okay. If the company ceases operations of its MTC in the town for a period of greater than 60 days without substantial action to reopen or relocate operations outside the town, or termination or revocation of the company's final license by the commission. So that was the only question I had, was just to make sure that I was understanding that timing.
What constitutes substantial action?
Foundation in the ground.
Well, no,
mean,
that,
there's-
no, this is like, there ceases operations for a period of greater than 60 days.
Without substantial action to reopen or relocate such operations
that's
outside of the town, or
Okay. No, I was thinking of substantial construction in the beginning, not after
Yeah,
they're
but
open.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, do we have an idea what substantial, you're here,
What is he
Ivrea, right?
What's he referencing? What is that referencing? Substantial
Yeah.
action?
Yeah, before Ivrea speaks, I was just gonna say Ivrea's on, so I'm gonna sign off. That way we don't have two lawyers on this.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Alright, thank you guys
No
for being
worries.
flexible.
Take care.
Okay, sorry, thank you, I had a town meeting prep session, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's quite all right. We understand meeting overlap.
So, substantial action, was that the question as it appears in the draft host community agreement?
Yeah,
Is that-
4E4.
Yep, so that phrase, substantial action, comes from the model HCA presented by the Cannabis Control Commission. We don't have guidance what constitutes substantial action in their eyes, so at this point, I would defer to the select board to decide what constitutes substantial action. We can look at the zoning context where we see, but those are more construction related, so we can maybe use that as some guidance, but I think this is gonna be a little bit of, an arbitrary and capricious type analysis that the board will do to figure out whether it's substantial in their eyes. And again.
And if it's in the model, eventually they'll maybe have guidance on it, yeah.
I think so.
And I don't think I could tell what was however I printed this out or looked at it, I don't think I could tell what you had changed and what was in the model, so I may have to go back and do a better review print.
Yeah, maybe some
Okay,
comparative.
I thought I had given a track changes, but if not, I can definitely
No, it
produce a
wasn't.
track change document and circulate that for the board. The changes were pretty minor, except for the termination section, which I don't think you guys have gotten to yet, further down.
No, I'm just going through my question, and there were comments, but there weren't any changes. So there were some comments in what I printed out, but I didn't see any changes.
Okay, I can get a track change document for you guys.
So, then under the fees, there was a question under the, generally occurring fees, utility fees, including water, sewer, stormwater, waste collection fees, fees collected in association with licenses, permits, approvals, including but not limited to consultant fees, and other. Is there anything other? Do we have any other to add?
I don't have any others that I
Yeah.
can think of right now.
And I thought the wording around the local taxes and the fees was good, so that we're outlining them to be specific but not too specific.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was good. And then I had, I had a question, on the diversity, equity, and local opportunities, section 8, I think. I think that was good. I just had a question, because we had somewhere in our ranking and a criteria that they would report to us like once a year. Is that where this would go? If we were gonna,
Yeah, we can definitely incorporate anything you want into this provision around reporting. I think that's a reasonable condition to be.
yeah, and I would make it kind of loose, like including, yearly reporting to the town may be requested. In other words, we may not, if we do a license, we'll probably ask it to be part of the license, renewal, but we may ask it or we may not. So if we don't, I kind of thought, well, maybe if we don't ask for it, they don't have to do it, but I don't know,
And
maybe.
what specific reporting documents would you be looking for?
I'm just looking for, so we're saying that make good efforts to hire municipal residents for employment, supplier services or vendor services, that they'd say, in the calendar year 2024, we've had, 8 resident employees for, a lot of it's your normal diversity reporting. And the same, it would be a calendar year reporting of the actual number of diversity and equity and local opportunities in those 3 different categories.
Okay.
That's all, that's what I'm thinking. I went to diversity and or equity and inclusion things that said you gotta have data to know whether you have a problem.
Okay.
So that's what I'm looking
We
for.
can definitely add that,
Okay.
in section 8 in the next draft.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking the HCA's, is that an ask we ask any other business? And why are we asking just this particular?
Because it's part of what they want. I mean, the Cannabis Commission wants these things. And, you know, it's reporting, I don't think it's so much extra reporting, but,
Okay.
I mean,
Now, I'm playing the other
Yeah.
side, like, you know,
we don't say to other businesses, do you do this? We kind of, you know, but this is kind of meeting the Cannabis Commission. You have something, Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin Howe, Monument Beach. When we renew our license every year, that is part of our renewal process. We have to update the state on our employees, who they are and where they came from and so forth. So that information is being provided already to the state.
To the
on an-
state?
on
We're
an
just gonna
annual
ask
basis.
you
And
to
is
give
it-
it to us.
and
Yeah.
is that
Okay.
public information or not?
Yeah.
It is?
It's in our license packet. I'm sure everything's public. You can go
Yeah.
on their site and see everything. You can see all the renewals and all the applications and everything else. Yep.
Yeah, so that's, I think, why this is in there, because they want this. It's one of their goals. So us having that information to make sure that people are actually doing what they said they were gonna do is good. And I did think that part of the license renewal, if we do our own license, and if we're not gonna do our own license, then it could just be, we could just use the state. And everything else I thought was, everything else was good, and that's really good, because I usually have about 4,000 questions, so. Good job. I don't know. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, it's pretty tight to the existing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the recommendation anyway with the few.
Yeah, so, before you were on here, the only thing we really talked about, was in the first paragraph where it says a business entity, to kind of leave a blank where the exact kind of business entity, like LLC or corporation, would be put in. And, yeah,
And number 14, which is assessors and assignees, I know here the company shall not assign, sublet, or otherwise transfer its rights, nor delegate its obligation under this agreement in whole or in part without prior written consent of the town. So, I mean, we do something similar to this with the ABCC with the.
Right.
So it's, yeah, I have no problem with that.
yeah, and I think we have to do that, because they could transfer, if we don't have that in there, they could transfer it to anybody they wanted, and we'd have no say. Yeah, so,
You know,
it is
I-
like the ABCC that we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And one provision you should think about is section 15, which I added, it is not in the model. And, it seeks prior written approval of the select board prior to a change of ownership request being submitted to the commission. It's discretionary whether you want to include this or not. For example, let's say the owners are staying the same, but there's a new person coming in who's gonna have a 10% or more interest in the business. They would need to get approval of the Cannabis Control Commission for that new individual to, join the operating ownership structure. This is giving you the ability to also approve that individual. If you don't want that authorization, you can just leave it to the commission and remove section 15.
No, I thought section 15 was good.
Okay.
Number 17, are electronic signatures the way of the future now? Are they considered valid or legitimate?
They are, yeah. This provision is very standard in contracts nowadays.
Yeah, you use DocuSign. If we have a DocuSign application or a DocuSign thing, yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
If they accept it on your tax return, why not?
Yeah.
That's right. All right. So, do we have any other changes to this, or do we want to move it to a second reading, or are we good with it?
Yeah, I would say,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Anybody have any?
I don't think they've seen it. I don't think it got posted. I'm not sure it got posted, right? So I'm going to say.
It's not with the materials, no.
Okay, so I'm going to say, let's move this to a second reading.
Yeah.
We'll move to a second reading, so I'll take a
Motion to move it to second
Second.
reading.
And we'll make sure that it gets posted so people can read exactly everything we've done. Okay, this has to be a roll call vote, so anybody from any comment, Zoom, public? Good to go, okay. Motion to move to second reading, Peter.
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
MJ, yes, 400. We'll go to second reading at our next meeting. Okay, moving right along. What do we want to do next? you want to do criteria next?
Sure.
So, thank you for the criteria grid, which, I thought was good. I got one thing in the equity standards, equity parties. It said, proof that the individual has satisfied any of these criteria will result in a score of 25.
Oh, yes.
But I do have a question about this. I just want to clarify something. Can you explain again how we have to have the equity standards? Can we set the equity standards at 25% and then give more weight to the business plan? Or does it have to be the lowest? It has to be equal to the lowest with the highest ranking thing.
So, to answer your question, the regulations require it to be 25% of the overall score.
Okay.
So you could theoretically give 75% to one other category and 25% to equity, you would still be in compliance with the regulations. I did notice a typo in the agreement. I think originally I had equity standards as 25 points, but
Yeah.
then we changed it to 30, so I
Yeah.
think that brief section should say 30. I apologize for that.
So, if we can use it as the 25 basis of 100, thank you for that clarification.
Add 5 points to something else, is that what you're saying?
Actually, I think I would make ownership 25, I would make equity 25, and I would make business plan 40. We have 8 different categories to rate in the business plan.
We do.
And I think it probably is really an important category for success. So if we did that, it would be 10 points for the location question, 25 for the ownership, 25 for the equity, and 40 for the business plan.
Okay.
And it kind of is interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you do that, kind of the subcategory points. If you say, because for
Rate to 5 each.
they actually rate to 5 apiece, except for, so the equity thing is 25 points, then the ownership is 5 for resident, 5 for documented business experience, 5 for industry experience, 5 for majority women-owned, and 5 for not a social equity, but majority minority-owned. So that each of those are 5, and then there's 8 under the business plan: management, residents, hiring, diversity.
Well,
operations.
if they hit any of the equity standards, it's an automatic 25.
Yes, so that's the only one under there. Yeah, but I mean, under the other categories, there's 8.
Yeah. under
And
the
we don't
business
have to
plan,
actually
yeah.
mandate it as 5, but the only other thing I was thinking of for the location, does not abut school property. If you gave that 10 points, you could say, does abuts property or school or recreation, does abut, but mitigations are provided, give them 5 points for that. And abuts but no mitigation, give them 0 points for that. Kind of just say this.
Yeah, well, a total of 10.
Yeah.
How we decide to do,
Right.
assigned.
I don't know how, I wasn't sure whether we were gonna have, say that each of these things was worth 5, or whether we were just gonna say 25, 25, and let people do their own calculations. And I don't know what we're required to do. If we're gonna have a rating system where we rate 5 things, do we have to say how much points the subcategories are worth, or do we just say that these are what we're gonna be using?
So again, we don't have guidance from the commission, but I do think it would be appropriate to just have a general, this category is 25, and then allow you to determine, based on all the information relative to that category, what
Okay.
the score should be. And so, for example, in the ownership, if a business if you're giving 5 to each of those bullet points, for example, you could have a social equity business that qualifies as social equity, and so then it's getting harmed in the ownership category because they don't meet that 5th prong.
Oh, I see.
That 5th prong was to give support to other minority business owners that may not qualify as social equity business. It wasn't intended to harm.
Okay, all right.
businesses.
So we don't need to assign points for sub things. We can just say that,
Yeah, and
Okay.
depending, it's comparative criteria. So if you're looking at a business plan where, everything falls into place and it's strong, then you give it a 40. But if you look at a business plan, they may be hit all the comparative criteria, but it isn't as strong in some areas, so you might give it a 30 or 35.
Right.
Because it's comparative criteria. You're looking at 2 candidates or two, or right.
and I wasn't sure how detailed we had to be in our scoring. If we're fine to just say this is by the total points, I'm fine.
You'll get business plans that hit all these targets, but I think that the quality of that plan is where you assign
yeah.
the point value.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think until we have additional guidance from the commission, I think that's a reasonable reading of the regulations, that you don't need that, like, kind of micro level management and criteria grading.
awesome. The only other thing I had under ownership is, like on the first bullet, it says owner, Bourne resident for at least 3 years or of the last 5 years. And then it said documented business experience. I think those next 3 bullets need to say ownership has documented business experience, and ownership has documented industry experience, and ownership is majority. I mean, I know it's in the ownership category, but I think that I would just word it to be specific. And then the business doesn't qualify as a social equity business. It's fine, that's a fine bullet. And then you had a comment under business plan, section that size of lot and size of building. You said you should just maybe be part of a location. I think we were thinking more of it as an indication of the size of the operation, and so really more as part of the business plan, so,
Okay,
yeah, I think that's why it was there.
okay. So we can play around with the language there, that, to make it read more around operation in the next draft.
Okay. I mean, it's that compared, that's that size and lot and size of building is part of the required documentation, that they just tell us what it is. I mean, yeah, okay. Other than that, I think it's pretty good. I mean, does anybody else have, like, things they want to change in that?
No, I think we focused in on some of the things that matter and we want to evaluate. I mean, the whole idea is to be able to identify a business that's going to have success.
Right. So, I would change, so we're location at 10, ownership at 25, equity at 25, and business plan at 40. Are we good with those changes?
So motion to approve the rating points scoring as edited in the draft.
Second.
And let's move this forward for like a second reading, so we can get it as a draft and get it posted so everybody in the public can have comment.
Yep.
Do you have anything, Melissa, did you want to add, or are you cool with this?
I think it looks great as well. I
Yeah.
reviewed it. It looks good. She did a good job.
Public comment.
Any public comment?
Yeah, maybe Steve Stroni, Monument Beach, maybe it's a little premature, but so now, if these are both going to second readings, they have to go through 3 readings, right, at the board and whatnot?
No, they can
They
go.
don't have to.
They can, we can finalize it at second reading.
Okay, so then my question is, what is the timeline are we looking at now? Are we looking at a application submittal period of, say, the month of May?
We're not ready.
Okay, well, that's why I said,
It's premature.
Okay.
We're working hard, Steve. We'll let you.
I know you are, and I'll tell you that, you know.
You want it done just as much as you do, honestly.
And you guys have done a really good job, and I'll tell you, you know, I've been involved in this in other communities, and I'm fond of saying, let's do things the right way, the Bourne way, as opposed to rely on other communities, and you guys have done a wonderful job, the select board and the administration, so I appreciate your efforts, I really, truly do. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're close.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
All right, so we're moving this draft as edited to
To
second
second
reading.
reading.
Okay, roll call vote. Peter,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Anne Marie,
Yes.
MJ, yes. 4-0-0, second reading. Okay. So what do we want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about order of applications?
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to start digging into some kind of timeline. Well, you know, what constitutes
Right.
an application moving to the next step.
Yeah, I had some, I didn't bring,
A little bit about process.
yeah, we had talked a little bit last time about, like, timing of steps. I don't know if I have it with me still. I didn't bring it with us.
Hold on. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't kind of work on that. Because I know we deleted some steps. And we thought
want mine?
about some other things. Yes.
I can
yeah.
mark and get a copy if anybody.
You want it? You want it? You want to see it?
Yeah, you want to make, do we want to make some copies?
With Marlene's permission.
Sure.
Okay.
We have it in last meeting's packet, FYI.
But I know that in the meeting, I know that in the
I
you,
crossed
so
it
you
out.
wrote, yeah, so you
Oh,
wrote
he
things
grabbed
out.
it, yeah.
But I mean, I know that there were that we talked about changes, and it's gonna be beyond my capacity today to remember. What exactly the changes were.
Yeah. 4, I think we eliminated. 3 we kept. We were notifying all. Notifying all and asking for presentation.
Yep. What was the date of that meeting? What was the date of that meeting?
24th, I think. 24th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We said open the application period for 30 days. Have an initial review by staff.
Right.
Select board meeting after number 3. If there are more than 10 applicants, have
Have preliminary criteria to look at by SB.
So we said we weren't really gonna select unless there were more than 10, right?
Correct.
Or,
Want to make sure Melissa can pull the
If there's-
top line.
Yeah, if there were 10 or less, we'd have all of them come in.
in that meeting, or were we gonna notify of the, so,
So after the 3rd, we would notify them to come to the, after number 3.
Right.
Number 4, we would notify them to come to that next SB meeting.
yeah, and hopefully we would have that meeting date set
Right.
initially, so when they applied, they could
Because
put it
we
in
will
their
know, like,
calendar that that's
if
the
it starts
date,
May
right,
1st,
Right, and with an
June
alternate.
1st, it's, it closes, or whatever, the 29th, whatever.
Yeah, and when we actually made, set 2 dates, and then,
And then we might need 2 meetings for the,
I would say we would set
For
2
the
dates.
invite.
We would set 2 dates, and if there are more than 10 applicants, have preliminary criteria for deciding what the 10 applicants are. I think that's kind of
Right.
what we went to.
yeah.
So we would, at the beginning of the process, say, we're gonna meet on this date and this date for interviews. And people could lock that in their calendar so they'd have it, and then if we ended up having more than 10 people, we'll have to notify who's gonna do it. And then,
Yep.
so the community outreach, did we just
We
decide?
took out number 6.
Yeah, because that's already part of number
Yep.
4.
Yeah.
And the community outreach,
That has to be,
Well, the applicant will be doing that, not
that's
a,
their, we just wanted notification. I don't know where that falls in. I don't know if it has to be within a certain timeline. We just had requested, if I think the conversation correctly, was just to have notification that they were holding community outreach, because we have to help that process along. And,
well,
I
that's
thought we
the-
just wanted notification.
We said in 7, the original 7 was notify selected applicants of selection, and that's to enter into an HCA.
Right,
And request a signed HCA and community outreach meeting attestation. The question is whether we're gonna want to have that community outreach meeting before we decide who we're gonna
Well-
decide on.
number 5 speaks to that. Notify applicants of interview, right? Well, that's,
We've already had the interview.
right, that's what I'm saying. So I'm looking at number 5 right now. So
Okay,
in 4, we're doing the notification. The second half of 5 is to hold community interview and to hold. So we're getting rid of the first half of 5, because that's being done in 4.
right.
And then, but the whole community outreach piece is on the applicant. I think the only
So-
thing we asked was for notification of when.
Yeah, but I think actually what we need to put in here is we're gonna have interviews and we're gonna rate people, right? So we're gonna have 2 meetings, sort of like, to interview people. Then we're gonna have a meeting, we're gonna rate them and say, these are the people that are the highest ratings and the people that we're gonna go
Yes.
into.
Yeah.
And at that meeting, whenever that meeting is, do we want to have the host community? I need some input here. When do you, people that are familiar with this, feel that the community outreach meetings happen in this process? Between the time you apply to us and the time we have
We
said,
ask you
know,
for an
each year,
HCA?
Where do you see the community outreach happening? In the 30 days period, like you apply and?
Really, it's when we do the process with the commission, because the commission requires us to have them in such a period of time
Okay,
with them. So doing it with you would, and then we start to put our application in with the state, and that process could take another 90 days. It might expire with what we've done with you. it's a required thing to happen, so it's happening, and you know it's happening.
Right, right.
But that's where it happens in the process with the state. And there is a window of announcing it and having it in
Yeah,
a certain
yeah.
time in your application process.
Right. But you need the HCA,
We need the HCA to move forward with the application process. So
so,
you need the HCA in your hand, and then you can start the process with the state. And there are
then-
several hurdles to get through.
and then you'll have that time frame open up for the host, for the community outreach.
Right, but if you do it too early, it expires and you have
So
to do it
what's
again.
really confusing, and maybe we can,
And that's the way we did it in the last process.
yeah, maybe she can give some guidance on this, because the way the Cannabis Commission website says now, that the community outreach is viewed as integral to the host community process, which is really too early. I mean, because,
It is.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say historically, the process was that the establishment would come in, the operators would come into town, they would have their big meeting, and then they would go to the select board and say, we were able to listen to residents, they had these concerns, and then they would execute the HCA, and then would go forward with the commission. And like this gentleman is saying, is by the time they got to the commission, their, community outreach meeting deadline had far passed, and they would have to hold another meeting. So I think when marijuana was so new, that process worked really well, because it was nice to have like a general introduction to the community. Now that people understand marijuana a little bit more, we are seeing the community outreach meetings happening after the host community agreement is signed with the select boards, as he's saying now. So I think it really depends on you. Do you want to see them have this meeting during your host community negotiation, or are you comfortable relying on the fact that it has to occur? They won't get a license by the commission unless it occurs, and that it can happen after you've executed your HCA.
Okay, I'll just make a comment.
Yep.
When we also did ours in Carver, we had to do a couple of them. One person showed up. I know somebody who just recently did it in another community, and no one showed up. It was a good thing when it was very new.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted to see what it was all about. It's in 270 communities in Massachusetts now, and people aren't as
I say
interested
we
in
take
it.
it out, we just leave it to the commission.
Yeah.
I say we take it out, leave it to the commission. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get notification of when they're doing it anyway.
Yeah. Well,
because
they
it's gonna be-
They have to do it with the Cannabis
They have to
Commission, or
be-
they
yeah.
can't, they
We
can't
posted it in the
execute.
newspaper, and we have to
Right.
on what paper we posted it in and send it.
Right.
that, and so.
Right.
Right, and they need to certify to the, I'm sorry, I'm hearing bits and bits, but they'll have to certify to the commission that it occurred, they'll have to notify you
Yeah.
that it's
Right,
occurring, so
right,
it's not like
right,
it's
right,
gonna, pass by, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right, it's not, I don't think it's necessary to be part of our process. And I was very confused by it, because they said it should be part of this part early, but then it didn't make any sense based on their other timeline. So, all right, so we're gonna have initial staff review. We're gonna have preset interview dates, where we will interview up to 5 applicants each time.
Is it, okay. Is
Would we
that
have another meeting, a follow-up? We wouldn't try to rate everybody, and then we'd have a meeting to decide on who we wanted to go in the HCA. So
Right,
then
so
we
we're
have a
looking at
public.
three
then we-
meetings,
Yeah.
or is the public hearing and decision done at the same time for
Yeah,
licensure?
yeah, I think so. Right, I think we'd have a public hearing to say the select board is gonna be making their decision on, we've interviewed our candidates, we're gonna be making our decision on, and it's not a public hearing like,
Public comment.
yeah, but it'll be a note, sort of a public hearing, that's the informal public hearing process.
Well, okay, so
We just
hold
wanna
on.
say public meeting,
Okay, so hold
or
on.
meeting to vote HCA.
So we're initial review. They come to us
Yeah,
possibly for 2 separate meetings, depending on on the applicants and
Right.
scheduling. And then after that, we individually, collectively assign our
well, so
Value.
we do our ratings, we have a
that
meeting and we say, okay.
third, let's call it the third meeting
Yeah.
in front of us, is we, at that point, deliberate
Yeah.
and bring forth our total scores, right? and recommendations, I'm gonna guess, top 3 or whatever.
Yeah,
And we have that meeting where we deliberate and vote to decide to move forward to HCA's.
right,
So that's at that meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
Then they go to the
And
planning
then-
board, site plan.
Then
go
they
to the planning
get
board.
planning board, all of that. They go to the state says, here you go. You got your license. They come back to us
And they
and we
get
have the
their-
public hearing.
No, they come back to us and then we have our final license agreement.
But that doesn't have to be done in a public hearing like the
No,
ABCC.
no,
It doesn't.
no,
Okay.
no.
Sorry, may I ask a question?
Yep,
So, once they have the HCA from the select board, right now, they don't need anything additional at the local level from this body. Obviously, they need their zoning approvals, but if you were gonna adopt a licensing process, that should occur through bylaw, and I'm aware that communities have done so. We can talk about whether or not we could collect a fee relative to that license and kind of the issues or potential issues around that. But I think we likely would need a bylaw to establish a licensing process. So depending on where we are in the
That was my
timeline of your town meeting schedule, it could be possible that they operate or commence operation, or at least construction, without a local license. My question to this body, if you are thinking about a license, is what is the purpose of the license? What are you seeking that you're not getting through the HCA process or through your local zoning process? What is the purpose and the goal of the licensing scheme that you're looking to establish?
well, one is to have a yearly fee.
One is, yeah.
One is to have a yearly fee, and, you
Right.
know, similar to like an alcohol license or a common victular license. I mean, it's not gonna be an exorbitant fee, I don't think. It's just gonna be a yearly fee. And it's also in our licensing process for them to document what we said about the equity and that they're still in business and they want to renew and they want to continue. And I envision it that if they could get through the whole process, that this licensing fee would be, this license would be for calendar year '25, if we can get approved by the Attorney General by then, or as soon as approved by the Attorney General, the bylaw. And then whatever our licensing, when we set up that licensing process, we could think about, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, because
Yeah.
if they can actually get through and get started, we're just gonna let them do it, and then they just get a license for 2025, or whenever we get it done.
Okay.
And
so
then
I
it would
can
be
send
annual.
I can send some additional guidance to this board,
Yeah.
at a later date, I'll send a letter kind of outlining the process and what the bylaw could potentially look like with some examples. I know Tewksbury just did one recently that was approved by the Attorney General in January. Most of what we have does predate the, most recent round of regulation, so I can kind of elaborate on what that is from a risk analysis, and you guys can decide how you want to proceed.
Yeah, and I would say that it's gonna go, we're gonna have this meeting to vote the HCA, then they're gonna go to the planning board, special permit process.
Head to the state, their final.
They can, yeah, they can head to the state, they can head to the state anytime they want. I mean, as soon as they get the HCA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after they get their cannabis license, if we have a license, then when they're ready to open, come to us for the final license. That's kind of simple, and I think.
Yeah, that's jumping the gun a little bit, but
Yeah.
that's
That'll
when
be
we would host
possible-
the public hearing because
Possible,
we have to.
yeah, because we don't have that
issue a
license yet,
license.
and we can't.
Kevin Hump, William Beach.
Yeah.
Just think about this. The Cannabis Control Commission, when they approve your final license, you've already been delayed and put off for several months. And all I'm saying is, when you're thinking of the timing of this, it's very difficult to tell those people you now have to wait 2 weeks to go to the select board to get that license at that point. That's my only point. Like,
Yeah,
it happened in Carver. We were ready September 1st. The state didn't get around because of their meetings and what they put on their agendas and everything until December 20th of giving us our final approval. And it has to do with final inspections and all of those things.
Yeah.
We were approved in October, but their inspection person couldn't get out to us until December. And so at that point, you have a company that's got millions of dollars in stake right here, and you're saying, 2 more weeks before you open up. It's a difficult, and at that point, they have full payroll, because you have to have your employees there and trained and everything else, and now you're saying sit on $10,000 or $15,000 worth of payroll a week for a couple more weeks till we get you your local license. That's, it just, think of it that way, and it's, if there's a way that you can put it in ahead of time and so
I don't
forth.
think
So
we
there is a provisional license that comes out that you
Right.
get from the state.
Right.
Maybe you put your process in after you receive the provisional. I just don't want to see anybody sitting around waiting because.
Or we could have a provision, we could have, well, first of all, we're not gonna even have this license until after we go to a fall town meeting and set up a bylaw for the license, and then it goes to the Attorney General for 90 days. So we're not, it's not even gonna be part of the process initially until
Okay.
we can actually get a bylaw. And then as we write the license and like what the timing of the license is, it may be that the first licenses are not till 2026.
Your local license, even though they're up and operating and running.
So you're up and, you're
Okay, just as long
operating,
as
and
that-
then it's more gonna be like a renewal license than an initial license. It's gonna be.
Maybe it's on the first renewal that
it
you
would
collect
be-
your fee.
Yeah,
on the
in
first
business,
renewal.
once you're in business for the next calendar year, you're gonna
That's
do a
fine. It just-
renewal on that. That might end up making it a little easier. Oh, I can't get too much in the weeds about the
No, I
license
just,
thing.
you don't want to
Because
run up.
you know what, we're gonna move forward without that license because we're not even gonna have it for this initial round, and I'm not gonna hold up the round for it. Right?
Are we having an application fee?
Can we have an application fee? We can have an application fee, but it has to be based on the application, the cost of the application, right, staff review and stuff? Can we have one?
So typically you can, many communities have them with alcohol and other types of licenses. I think there's some questions about the legality of that type of fee, and I'm happy to, draft a letter for the board to review.
So the application fees usually have to do with, they have to be like based on reasonable fees. So we just went through this with our sewer fees, like changing the structure of our sewer application fees so that an industrial license, which requires more staff input and review, is more expensive than a residential sewer license. So, something, and some guidance on how we might think about what's a reasonable fee for an application. I'm not thinking a $10,000 fee. I'm thinking about, we're gonna have staff required for review and other things and typing and, putting it on agendas.
Yeah, time on task,
Yeah.
resource.
Yeah,
Yes, I will send you a letter after this meeting that
Okay.
discusses the cannabis fee specifically and how the regulations may apply.
and does that make sense to people that they're gonna go through this whole thing with cannabis and everything else, and then they're gonna be in business, and the following January is when that they would apply for a license, a renewal license. So our license would be a marijuana renewal license, not a marijuana license. Does that sound reasonable to you, or are you like saying this is a nightmare?
I think my answer to that is both. I think it is reasonable, and I think it is a nightmare. It's not a nightmare of our creating, but it's a nightmare we're gonna have to live with. And we will, but this is something, I think we have to be more realistic. And,
What do you mean realistic?
so I think there's a lot more work that goes into each of these maybe than we're aware of right now. And I don't want to pull you off your train of thought, but these number of days are completely unrealistic.
Well, yeah, I mean, then you can give us, and a lot of that is number of days is like, a lot of those staves are even gone.
Yeah.
So, and we can talk about those number of days, so at the initial review of the staff, maybe like we'll figure out like when we're gonna have our and we'll do that when the interviews for the select board would be part of our process of setting up the application. So we would, at the beginning of that time, say, these are the 30 days, this is how much time we need for staff review.
Yeah.
This is when we're gonna do the things, and
Because,
then,
I mean, I can tell you, 12 to 15 days for staff review is not,
okay.
it's,
Especially if there's 10 applications.
especially if there's 10 applications, especially if it's in the middle of the summer, and I've got department heads rotating on vacation, you know,
Right.
we feel a lot of pressure. So, and 12 to 15 days is 2 weeks. And 1 to 3 days on anything is, I mean, I have 2 people out sick.
That's
and-
it, that's out, that whole
We
thing
took
is
that out.
All those 1 to 3 days.
1 to 3
things
days
gone.
are out.
All those steps are gone. All those, yeah, there's a lot of steps
Yeah.
gone here. So let's redraft this again, taking out all the steps that we did, and then bring it back to then have some more practical discussion about,
I
Time.
also don't think you can, I don't think there's any way we can reasonably plan on doing these as part of a regular select board schedule. I
Right.
think these have to be standalone outside, which is a whole nother set of,
right,
you know, it's a whole nother set of administrative work and
yes.
that we have to balance with, you know, all of our other full-time work. So this is, you have to understand that that we can't absorb all of this in, you know, immediately.
Yeah, no,
And-
I do.
and it's gonna take us time to review them.
Yeah. So, and I do think, when I was originally thinking about this, I was thinking that when we set up the application process and say, all right, we're gonna open this, let's just say June 1st. So June 1st, we open it, or August 1st, or whatever it is, and we close it August 30th. Let's just say, open it August 1st, close it August 30th. Then, then we'd be like in the middle of town meeting, like preparation.
We're always in the middle of something. There's no
town meeting,
time
it's
where we're
budget.
not
But
in the
I
middle of
think,
something.
I'm seeing that these meetings, interview meetings, 5 interview meetings, these are gonna be like the retreat days, where we say, we're gonna take a day and we're gonna meet
You're gonna
as
have
select
to.
board,
You're
you
go-
know, for like, 5 hours to do interviews, and it's gonna be, you know, that's what it's gonna be like. It's not gonna be like 7 to 9 or something.
No.
No, but when we're actually ready to do it, then we'll set out what those times are. And it's almost like the dates for those things are what's gonna be part of the application process. So that's set in, you know, it's kind of set in advance, and people have notice.
Yeah.
And they're actually all gonna be kind of TBD, so. Okay. And then we can decide whether we wanna have an annual license renewal, or maybe it's not necessary. I don't know, that's where I was really asking about the nightmare. I mean, for 3 businesses, do we even need to do it?
I think for 3 businesses, it's not really gonna matter one way or another. It's the initial,
All right, so they get it, they're renewing every year with the Cannabis Commission, and as long as they're renewing with the Cannabis Commission, we're good, and if they're terminated by the Cannabis Commission, they're done with us, right? That's it? So I'm gonna say that the license for 3 establishments is not even worth going through the process.
So not have a
You
license.
can't talk from the, you have to go up to the
So
microphone.
not have a licensing process.
No,
Yeah.
this is the process.
The HCA
The HCA,
is the contract,
yeah, you get your site
and
plan
then you're a
approval.
business and you can operate in the town.
Yeah,
And these businesses also pay a tax money to the town, which liquor
Yeah.
stores in those places don't.
Yeah.
You're getting revenue from these communities,
Yeah.
which can be used for any of these administrative things you think
Yeah.
will cost
Yeah.
you. So it's not like it's going unfunded.
oh, we have that money spent 3 times.
the problem is we don't have the money up front.
Yeah,
And we have to do all the work up front. That's
That's why I asked about an application fee.
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so we do need that letter on that, Mac, give us some recommendations on our maximum application range, like, okay.
Are you talking about an HCA application fee, or are you talking about a license application fee? Because I think the answer to whether you can charge an HCA application fee is no. I think that is clear. The question of whether you can charge a license application fee is something that I can give you more guidance on.
All right, well, we don't have a license,
Right.
so we can't you're saying, could we ask, I mean, we can charge an application fee for a sewer allocation.
So all fees, the regulations say that all fees that the marijuana business is going to pay the town have to be included in the HCA. So I think you run the risk of a challenge to any fee that you charge for reviewing of an HCA.
Right, because they,
Now, it's not to say that these, many establishments are willing to pay those fees, so other communities may be charging them, but my advice is that, you are running a potential risk.
so does that fall under the CIF?
No,
Do we have to quantify it as a CIF in the HCA?
So it's challenging whether we can quantify it as a CIF, because CIF is defined as being reasonably related, and reasonably related is defined as there being an enhanced need. And so what does enhanced mean? We don't know from the commission, but we are concerned about application fees being found to be an enhanced need, mostly because this occurs all the time. You review applications all the time, some of which you charge a fee for and some of which you don't. And so our concern is that those types of fees are in conflict with the statute. Now, like I said, many establishments may willingly pay it and not challenge it, but I think you do run a risk if you are collecting it.
so if we, it's not an HCA application fee, they're not applying for an HCA, they're applying for a marijuana retail or medical marijuana treatment center in the town, so it's like a business license, but we don't have a license, we don't have anything, but we didn't have to go to town meeting for an allocation fee, right? It's not a.
No.
What do you mean allocation fee?
Well, so we charge a application and design review fee for sewer.
You're talking about sewer allocation.
Yeah,
So the Board of Sewer Commissioners has the legal authority to set rates and fees.
okay. The select board does not?
Well, they do. They do. You set all sorts of rates and fees.
Yes,
You
you do.
set, you set mooring fees and parking sticker fees and, fees for building
Dog license.
permits and dog license fees.
Permitting fees, yeah.
You
Yeah.
set.
Dog license fees is town meeting, they set that, don't they?
Okay, so maybe not dog license fees, but you set building
Yeah.
permit fees, you set
Right.
fire inspection fees, you set
Ambulance fees.
ambulance fees, all of those fees.
So is there some sort of fee that we can assess that's not a license fee? It's
not
not
a
a
CIF.
HCA fee?
With an HCA.
So let's do this. Let me write you guys a letter so that you can get the information, understand the law is being applied, and then you can make a decision that's best for Bourne going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
What else?
All right.
This is a question from Marlene. Is this going to be, this isn't going to be, the application process? Is it going to be just a submittal of paper documents by the people? Or that there are some fillable maybe online, or what? How do you envision this as an application process?
I thought we agreed that it was gonna be paper form.
Did we?
Well, we had that discussion early on, didn't we?
Yeah, 'cause it was a
That they could access it
print it.
electronically, but that it has to be submitted in paper form.
That is what you decided. I am not, I don't understand our obligations with the whole website piece. I don't understand what we're required to do and what we're able to say no to. So I don't know if we can say it can only be on paper.
Do you have a comment on that?
If we can say it, but in the event someone is not able to, we have to provide assistance in that regard.
Well, what
The
does
way
that mean?
The way I read it.
All right, excuse me.
Self-mailed address stop, I don't.
So what, do you have any comments on what we're required to have on our website and our application process? Can we just do it like we do a normal RFQ or whatever, where we say submit these documents and then?
So the online website needs to articulate all of the steps for obtaining permission to operate within the town. So you need like a marijuana headquarters page type thing, and it's like, this is the process, it needs to be laid out. Now, you can accept everything in writing, that's fine. To answer that question, there is a provision in the regs that talk about things being translated into other languages. So if someone calls you and says, I only speak Spanish, can you translate this into Spanish? We have to work with them. But your website itself can be in English and just needs kind of all of the information about your process.
Do we have to let someone submit something electronically? Or can we require that they physically?
You can require, there's nothing in here that precludes that. I guess the question is, why does it matter to the board? If you have a preference one way or the other, I think that's fine, but does it really matter if it's electronic versus in person?
I think Marlene's preference is that they all be submitted the same way. We don't want to have you can apply through the portal or you can apply by paper. We want everybody submitting the same way. So it's kind of like it's kind of like an RFP, you'll say either go through Project Dog or
Building
have it
permit.
to the town hall by 3 p.m. on Friday. And we're going, have it on the town hall by 3 p.m. on Friday.
I think that's fine. I think I would be leery about only electronic, just because if someone doesn't have access to a computer or something like that, but if the requirement is that it be delivered either in hand or by mail to the town hall, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
So I do have a question about Anne Marie's comment about if someone needs assistance, we need to assist them. So I would never assist an applicant filling with an RFP. I would.
No, but that isn't that part of the social equity piece? If you have an applicant who has that need,
If they have questions, like the process, you're supposed to help them,
Yeah.
right? Where is the form?
that's what I'm saying. Not filling out an application. No.
So
I'm talking about process.
I want to be really clear about that because we, as the town staff, do not fill out applications.
Right.
We don't fill out permits. We don't fill out permit applications. The applicant has to tell us the information. We don't submit anything on behalf of the applicant. So I want to be really clear that we are not assisting anybody. They have to fill out their work and submit it.
Right.
We will
The
answer.
process, assisting the process, not the actual application.
We will answer questions.
Right.
We're not assisting. People come in and expect us to fill out applications for them,
No,
and we can't do it.
that's not the expectation, no. But part of, if someone's having a question or whatever,
So,
But
and
there-
that's one
there
of
is
the
a
things
piece
that
of
you
it.
have to have on your website.
Right.
If you have a question about site plan approval, this is the person you have a call.
Yes,
If you have a
yes.
question about how to submit your application, this is the person you call.
Mm-hmm.
That's the assistance that you give, telling people who they're supposed to contact to get the answer that they need.
Right, and they should have the grading metrics so that they understand what's going to be reviewed on. So it's just providing them with information,
Yeah.
and if they need help finding that information, giving them that assistance. But you absolutely are not sitting down next to them and helping them complete the application. That is their requirement. As long as you've provided the application to them, you have satisfied your obligations under the regulations.
Yeah, I'm just looking at they must publicize this plan in a conspicuous location at their offices and on their website. The plan must outline the goals, programs, and measurements the host community will pursue.
What plan?
So I think that's the next thing that we need to talk, or at some point we need to
Yeah,
talk about. So,
go ahead.
you know, we were identifying last meeting all the things that we needed to do. We needed to come up with the grading metrics, we needed the model HCA, and then we also needed a social equity plan. And I think you were still deciding, are we gonna do the one-to-one? What is our plan? What is our goal gonna be? And so I can provide you with some models for your consideration at your next meeting on the various plans, but,
Oh, I forgot that one-to-one thing.
One-to-one, we can talk about that.
Do we have to do the one-to-one, or by doing the 25%, do we satisfy our thing?
No,
No.
you
Oh.
always have to do the 25%.
You always, we have to choose one of the three, the one-to-one or,
You have to hold
Or-
them for 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. You hold them for 3 years, the one-to-one or the model bylaw.
Right, so that, if you do any of those three things, you're presumed to be in compliance with the equity, but then in addition to one of those three things, you need to adopt equity guidelines.
yes.
And those equity guidelines need to reflect kind of what your system is going to be in town. Whether that's just a very general, we're not gonna discriminate, or whether that's something more affirmative, you know, in the sense that you're going to hold a certain number of application or HCA spots for equity applicants. It's up to the board to make that decision.
So I think that's the next thing we should,
Yeah, I'm looking at the,
right. So you said that you could give us a sample document for, what, do you need feedback from us on, before you
Well,
give us something?
I can give you a general policy that some communities have adopted that just basically says, you know, when we put out an RFP, we're gonna make sure we put it out in languages spoken commonly in our community. We're going to make sure that it is posted in these sites that are accessible to everyone, you know, that we're not gonna discriminate. That's sort of like a general policy. I could share that with you. And then I can also share a one-to-one policy with you, so you can compare the two and then decide which way you wanna go.
Okay. Let's do that next
this one,
time.
there's some in the packet early on from Newton and Salem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, well, let's do that for our next time.
Okay.
The social equity policy guidelines.
and, right,
Or-
equity
or-
plan,
or
or
one-to-one.
policy, we'll call it a policy. But we have, there's a whole other equity plan posting that we're required as well, I believe. When you're talking about the website and understanding what has to be on it.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to talk about this time? We gotta start doing some minutes. Oh,
Oh, approving minutes. Just put it on the agenda. We haven't had approved minutes,
yeah. they're all-
approval as an
yeah.
agenda item, have we?
No, because I don't think we have any draft minutes, so. We actually had
Do you want me to-
motions, so we
since I'm
actually
the
had
clerk,
motions.
Do you want me to, go back and review and and create the minutes?
No, Kim needs to do them, we just haven't received them yet.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
You don't need to prepare
I don't need to prepare
the
the,
draft.
okay.
okay.
So the next meeting will be the 24th.
Did we set that already?
No. April.
24th is fine with me. Is that okay
Yeah.
with you?
Is that
I
right?
won't be here that afternoon, but, that's okay.
Be at 3 PM on the 24th works for me.
Is that good for you?
Yes.
Melissa, is 3 o'clock on the 24th okay for you?
I'm gonna have to try. Wednesdays are really hard for me.
Well, do we want to try a different day?
No, it's all right. Just keep it the way it is, and I'll do my best to sneak on. It's just right in between two meetings each time, but that's okay. Keep it the way it is. Don't fix it for me.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Peter?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
MJ? Yes. We're adjourned.
I mean, at some point, do we want to